playing still motherfucking self.
Fuck y'all.
If someone asked Maurice Harrison where she saw herself in 5 years, she probably would have smiled. Her life was moving fast. Her name was growing online. People knew her face, her voice, her talent. At just 21 years old, she had already built an audience that many creators only dream of. But on one Friday night in Florida, everything stopped. Maurice, known to hundreds of thousands as Girlalala, got into a car with someone she trusted, a person she loved. What happened next would turn her from a rising TikTok star into the center of a murder investigation. The argument didn't start with violence. It started with words, the kind of argument many couples have behind closed doors. But this one did not stay contained. Before the night was over, Maurice would be rushed to a hospital, and her boyfriend would be placed under arrest. As news spread, people rushed to her page. They watched her old videos again. They searched for signs they might have missed. Some said the clues were there all along. Others said nothing could have prepared them for this ending. This is not just the story of how a TikTok influencer died. It's the story of a relationship that crossed a line it could never come back from. And the question many are still asking is simple, but painful. How did love turn into something so final? Maurice, Girlalala. Harrison was only 21 years old when her life was cut short, but in that short time she built something many people spend decades chasing: visibility, community, and influence. Known online as Girlalala, Maurice was a transgender woman, a hairstylist, and a fast-rising TikTok creator whose videos reached hundreds of thousands of people across the world. Born and raised in Pompano Beach, Florida, Maurice grew up in a family that knew loss long before her own death. Years earlier, her brother had been killed in a separate act of gun violence. That tragedy shaped her family deeply and made what happened to Maurice even more painful. From a young age, Maurice was creative. She had a strong interest in beauty, hair, and self-expression. As she grew older, she leaned into hairstyling not just as a skill, but as a form of identity. Wigs, installs, transformations, and confidence-driven videos became her signature. Online, she was bold, funny, and open. She talked freely, laughed loudly, and never hid who she was. TikTok gave Maurice a platform. Under the name Girlalala, her videos began to travel far beyond Florida. She gained hundreds of thousands of followers who watched her hair content, daily life clips, and personal moments. For many Black and transgender viewers, she represented visibility and courage. For others, she was simply entertaining and talented. But while her online life looked vibrant, her personal life told a more complicated story.
If you enjoyed this true crime story from True Crime Lab Hub, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with fellow true crime enthusiasts. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so drop your comments below. And before you go, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified the moment we post new videos. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more gripping true crime stories.
At the center of Maurice's private world was her boyfriend, Shenoid White Jr., a 25-year-old man she had been dating before her death. People close to Maurice later said the relationship was unstable. Arguments were common. Friends and followers would later look back at older videos and posts and say the signs were there. Maurice sometimes hinted that her relationship was stressful. There were moments where her mood shifted suddenly. Some clips showed frustration or sadness that didn't match her usual energy. At the time, many people didn't fully understand what they were seeing. Only later did those moments take on new meaning. There is no public record of Maurice having children, and most of her life revolved around her work, her online presence, and her relationships. She was close to her family, and after her death, their grief was clear and overwhelming. Losing a child is devastating. Losing another child to violence after already experiencing that pain is something few families ever recover from. On a Friday night in November 2025, Maurice and Shenoid were together in a car in Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. According to investigators, the two were involved in a verbal argument. What started as words soon turned into something far more serious. Authorities say the argument escalated while they were inside the vehicle. At some point during the dispute, Shenoid White Jr. used a firearm. Maurice was shot while still inside the car. Emergency responders arrived and transported Maurice to a nearby hospital. Despite their efforts, she was pronounced dead from her injuries. She was just 21 years old. Shenoid White Jr. was taken into custody at the scene. Investigators recovered a firearm from the vehicle. He was later charged with first-degree murder with a firearm. A judge denied him bond, meaning he remains in custody as the case moves through the legal system. Law enforcement has stated that the investigation is ongoing and that they are reviewing all available evidence. They have also asked the public to come forward with any information related to the case. News of Maurice's death spread quickly across social media. Her followers were shocked. Many had watched her videos just days before. Some had even interacted with her shortly before she was killed. Clips from her past began resurfacing. People analyzed her expressions, her words, and her tone. What once seemed like casual moments now felt heavy. Comment sections filled with grief, anger, and regret. Many asked the same painful question: could this have been stopped? Tributes poured in from fellow creators, hairstylists, and fans. Candles were lit. Photos were shared. Messages flooded timelines calling for justice and accountability. A GoFundMe was created to help cover funeral expenses. It raised tens of thousands of dollars in a short time. Rapper JT donated $5,000 and used her platform to speak about the ongoing danger faced by Black and transgender women. Her message echoed what many were already saying. This was not just one tragedy, but part of a much larger problem. Maurice's death sparked renewed discussion about intimate partner violence, especially within marginalized communities. Statistics show that transgender women, particularly Black transgender women, face higher risks of violence from people they know, including romantic partners. In many cases, control, jealousy, and unresolved conflict build over time. Arguments become frequent. Friends notice changes, but no one imagines the worst outcome. Until it happens. Maurice's story fits a pattern that has repeated too many times. A young woman, a troubled relationship, an argument, a weapon nearby. A moment that can never be undone. As of now, Shenoid White Jr. faces a first-degree murder charge. Prosecutors allege that the shooting was intentional and occurred during a domestic dispute. He has been denied bond and remains in jail awaiting further court proceedings. The Broward Sheriff's Office continues to handle the case. Authorities say they are carefully reviewing all evidence and statements before trial. Maurice's family and supporters continue to call for justice, hoping the legal system will hold the accused fully accountable. While no single solution can stop every case, there are important lessons viewers can take away from Maurice's story. Relationship conflict should never be normalized. Frequent arguments, fear, or emotional stress are not signs of love. They are warning signs. Access to weapons increases risk. When firearms are present during conflicts, the chance of fatal outcomes rises sharply. Friends and community voices matter. Speaking up, checking in, and offering support can make a difference, especially when someone's behavior suddenly changes. Visibility should not come with danger. Being public, visible, or successful should never put someone at higher risk in their personal life. Maurice, Girlalala. Harrison was more than a headline. She was a daughter, a sister, a creator, and a young woman with dreams still unfolding. Her death is not just a story about crime. It's a reminder of how quickly unresolved conflict can turn deadly. Her followers continue to remember her, not for how she died, but for how she lived, bold, expressive, and unapologetically herself. Before her name appeared in headlines, Maurice Girlalala. Harrison was known for something very different: creativity, confidence, and a strong presence that drew people in. At just 21 years old, she had already built a public identity that blended beauty, humor, and self-expression in a way that felt real to her audience. Maurice was born and raised in Pompano Beach, Florida, where she spent most of her life. Those who knew her say she was expressive from a young age. She loved style, hair, and personal presentation. These interests were not just hobbies, they were how she communicated who she was to the world. As she grew older, Maurice openly lived as a transgender woman, a journey that brought both pride and pressure. Being visible online came with attention, some supportive, some critical. Still, she chose visibility. She chose to be seen. That choice would later make her a recognizable voice within the TikTok creator space. Maurice found her strongest platform on TikTok, where she used the handle Girlalala. Her content focused heavily on wig installs, hairstyling tips, beauty transformations, and lifestyle clips. She had a natural on-camera presence. She spoke directly, laughed freely, and connected with viewers as if they were friends rather than strangers. Her videos began to travel fast. Views climbed, followers multiplied. Soon she had hundreds of thousands of followers, many of whom returned daily to see her latest posts. Some followed her for hair content. Others stayed because they related to her confidence and honesty. For many Black and transgender viewers, Maurice represented something powerful: visibility without apology. She did not water herself down. She did not hide her identity. In a space where many feel pressure to fit into a narrow image, she stood out by being fully herself. Offline, Maurice worked as a hairstylist, turning her online talent into real-world skill. Hair was more than content. It was a career path she was actively building. Friends described her as driven, expressive, and ambitious. She wanted more growth, more reach, more opportunities. Family was important to Maurice, especially given the losses they had already experienced. Her family had previously suffered a devastating tragedy when her brother was killed in a separate act of gun violence. That loss left a lasting impact on everyone close to her. Despite that pain, Maurice pushed forward. She continued creating. She continued posting. She continued showing up online with energy and personality, even when real life felt heavy. As her platform grew, so did the pressure. Being known online often creates a split between what people see and what someone is dealing with privately. Maurice shared many moments of joy, but there were also times when her mood seemed lower. Some followers noticed shifts in her tone. Others didn't think much of it at the time. Later, people would look back and say those moments mattered. Growing an audience at a young age can be overwhelming. Comments come fast, opinions come faster, and personal relationships don't pause just because someone is gaining attention online. Maurice was navigating adulthood, identity, work, and love all at once, under public eyes. Maurice's romantic life was not a secret, but it was not fully public either. She was in a relationship with Shenoid White Jr., a man a few years older than her. While not all details were shared openly at the time, people close to Maurice later said the relationship had ongoing conflicts. Arguments were not rare. Tension existed. Some supporters later said they felt something was off, even if they could not explain it clearly back then. Maurice, like many young people, appeared to balance love with stress, hope with frustration. She was not just an influencer. She was a 21-year-old trying to figure out her life in real time. Maurice Harrison's story matters because it reflects more than individual success. It highlights how online visibility, personal relationships, and unresolved conflict can intersect in dangerous ways. She was young, she was talented, she was building something meaningful, and she deserved the chance to keep going. To her followers, she was Girlalala, the hairstylist with confidence and humor. To her family, she was a daughter and sister. To her friends, she was expressive and ambitious. Her life cannot be reduced to the way it ended. Understanding who Maurice was before November 2025 is essential, not just for accuracy, but for respect. Because before the crime, before the charges, before the headlines, she was living, creating, and dreaming. And that is the part of her story that should never be forgotten. Behind the confidence shown online, Maurice's personal life carried weight that few truly understood. While followers saw laughter, style, and talent, those closest to her later described a connection that brought emotional strain instead of peace. At the center of that strain was the romantic bond she shared with Shenoid White Jr. Relationships often begin with promise. In the early stages, affection can feel intense, protective, and reassuring. For Maurice, companionship mattered. Like many young adults navigating visibility and independence, she wanted love that felt secure. But as time passed, the relationship became defined less by comfort and more by tension. People familiar with the situation said disagreements were common. These were not small misunderstandings that passed quickly. They were repeated clashes that left emotional marks. Arguments became part of the pattern, and patterns, when ignored, tend to grow heavier. Several supporters later pointed to signs of imbalance. There were moments when Maurice appeared guarded, moments when her usual energy felt muted. Though not all details were shared publicly at the time, those shifts did not happen without reason. In many troubled relationships, control does not appear all at once. It builds slowly, through jealousy, through raised voices, through pressure that feels difficult to explain. Over time, what once felt like care can start to feel like confinement. Maurice was young, visible, and gaining attention. Public recognition can create insecurity in private relationships, especially when trust is weak. Instead of support, success can spark resentment. Instead of encouragement, growth can trigger conflict. This dynamic is not unique. It has appeared in countless cases where unresolved emotions are allowed to sit and harden. Friends and followers later said that tension seemed normal between the couple. That normalization is dangerous. When repeated conflict becomes familiar, it often stops being questioned. People adapt, they excuse behavior, they hope things will improve. Maurice continued focusing on her craft and her audience. She stayed productive, she stayed visible, but that did not mean everything was stable behind closed doors. No public record suggests she expected her life to be in danger. Like many people in strained relationships, she may have believed disagreements were temporary. That belief, hope without protection, is what makes situations like this especially tragic. One factor that cannot be ignored is access to a firearm. When tempers rise and weapons are present, outcomes can change in seconds. What might have ended as another argument instead became irreversible. The presence of a gun turns emotional conflict into a life-or-death risk. This is not speculation. It is a reality seen repeatedly in cases involving domestic disputes. On the night of the incident, an argument unfolded inside a vehicle. Confined space, rising emotions, no pause, no separation, no chance for calm. That combination proved fatal. According to investigators, the disagreement escalated beyond words. A decision was made that could not be undone. In that moment, a young woman with plans, talent, and a future lost everything. Moments like this do not begin in isolation. They are the result of unresolved tension, ignored warnings, and situations allowed to reach a breaking point. For viewers watching this story, it's important to understand that violence in relationships rarely appears without history. It grows quietly, it feeds on silence, and when it finally erupts, it leaves devastation behind. In the days following Maurice's death, online conversations shifted. People questioned how familiar these stories had become. Many pointed out that conflict within romantic relationships continues to claim lives, especially among those who already face social vulnerability. Her supporters spoke not only about loss, but about responsibility. Responsibility to take warning signs seriously, responsibility to protect one another, and responsibility to speak up when something feels wrong. Maurice's relationship did not define her, but it played a role in how her life ended. That truth is difficult, but it must be acknowledged. Understanding the emotional path that led to this tragedy is not about assigning blame to the victim. It is about recognizing danger before it becomes final. It is about learning from patterns instead of repeating them. Many viewers may recognize parts of this story in their own lives or in the lives of people they care about. That recognition can be uncomfortable, but it can also be life-saving. If this story is making you reflect, pause for a moment. Ask yourself who might need support. Ask yourself what behaviors should never be excused. And most importantly, ask yourself how awareness can prevent another name from being added to the list. Maurice deserved time. She deserved safety. She deserved to keep building the life she worked so hard to create. If you want stories like this told with truth, respect, and depth, stories that honor lives while exposing realities, subscribe to this channel. Your support helps keep these conversations visible, and visibility can lead to change. Because remembering is powerful, but learning is even more important.